Hi everybody, welcome to the live webcast here at the 2013 ASAE Annual Meeting and Exposition. We are so excited that you have joined us from your home, your office, your computer. We are going to bring you here to Atlanta to participate in this event the best we can. We're going to be diving into some of the topic sessions with the presenters right here, and we want you to get involved. So please send in your questions and we will get those to the presenters. We want to kind of give you a behind the scenes look now at what we're doing. We have teamed up with Bob.tv, so these are the Bob.tv crews and the CNTV crews right here on the show floor to take your questions and to make this happen. I am now joined by two of the presenters who were here yesterday at ASAE. Let me introduce them. This is Deborah Zabladil. Did I do okay with the pronunciation? Excellent. And Steve Levine. That one's a little easier to pronounce.
A little bit, yeah, thanks.
So we're glad you're here. Deborah, let's start with you. We're really talking about hot ingredients for cool conferences. And a lot of the folks out there are with associations, of course, trying to make their annual meeting as exciting as a TED, something like that. Let's start real quick with what's some advice you would give to them specifically.
You know, I think it's really about getting outside your typical mindset for the most part and really looking at being as nimble as possible. So as we looked at a number of the really cool conferences out there, many of them were not associations. And as Steve and I were talking, preparing for the conference, really one of the things that seems to be the case is that these organizations are able to really react to market demands. They're able to do really innovative things and really make great decisions and take risks that maybe associations are not typically able to. So really to try to create a culture with members and the rest of the staff and potentially any committees that risk is good and that you really have to take some calculated risks with your conference and create access for people and also really to cast a wider net in terms of the people that you're trying to attract. It's not all about the members anymore. It has to be about really a whole community.
So let's switch it over to Steve just for a minute. Let's talk about Young Presidents Organization and some of the cool things they're doing that associations might be able to learn from.
Sure, so we have an association of about 21,000 CEOs from around the world. And one of the core things that we do that I think a lot of conferences need to do a little bit more, and certainly associations do some of this, but really kind of hone in on what is the strategy. So what is the conference strategy? How does it fit into the overall marketing strategy in particular? And how do you integrate those two so that you don't have this big spend, whatever your budget is, this big spend on a 2-day conference, and then it ends. So it's really about how do you really set that strategy for before, during, and after in particular, and keep that conversation and dialogue going.
Part of that is buzz, right? I mean, here we are live on the internet. We know that the buzz is tied to social media, marketing, all of that. Let's talk a little bit about some specific things folks can do to help create that buzz at their own annual meeting.
Sure, and I think ASAE is a good example. You know, we're starting to get into mobile. There's a lot of conferences that are into that. It's been around for a while now, and I think people are really starting to figure out how do you harness the power of that mobile. So it's getting the app before the conference, it's getting those attendees to start networking with each other, talking about what sessions they're going to, scheduling meetings, whatever that might be, and then ideally allowing them to feed that conversation out to Twitter, a blog, Facebook, whatever that's going to be to keep that going. So technology is just a huge play and an ability to get that done.
Something else, and maybe Deborah will talk to you about this one that I found fascinating yesterday, were some of those things that can help create energy at a meeting, right? We talked about palate cleansers, music, Let's dive into those, some specifics that folks might be able to actually apply at their next meeting.
Sure. I think one of the things that's really easy to do that Steve talked about yesterday was we, in Singapore, an event that we worked on together, the Global Edge in Singapore, Steve brought in a DJ. And it was a local club DJ, and it was free. It cost nothing to actually bring the guy in, and it was so fun. It created so much energy in the room. So music is so easy to just up the level of energy in between breaks and all of that. And then there's the issue of the palate cleanser that we talked about. So I think you also want to pay attention to the emotions in the conference. So the palate cleanser would be, how do you go from something heavy to something lighter, and what do you put in the middle? But also, you want to invoke emotion in your participants. If you have a lot of people sitting in a room and they're kind of feeling nothing, they're learning, but their emotions aren't being tapped into, I think you're missing part of the equation. So really, how do you do that? How do you make them happy, make them, thoughtful, make them, sometimes sad at times, through a story.
Remember,
Right, absolutely. But the reality of it is, when you really bring it down to its essence, some of the things that make those conferences so cool are the fact that they do things like they surprise people.
Yes, for sure.
And that's something anyone can do with any budget, anytime.
Right.
So, yeah.
All right, we want to involve you all, the live audience now. So we're going to bring in Deb Greif, who's with Bob.tv. Deb, welcome. And we want to go ahead and have you ask some questions of Steve and Deborah from our audience.
Well, thank you for being so vocal in the online auditorium. And I do have a question from the audience, Deborah. So Tracy asks, do you agree that the future of professional and development will include micro-credentialing, badging, shorter certification segments?
Yeah, potentially. I think that we are getting more segmented as time goes on. So I think absolutely it might, yeah.
And another question, can you speak to the use or future use of video and technology to create a unique experience beyond the face-to-face audience to extend the experience after the face-to-face event?
Sure, and I know Steve can speak more to this because he has more experience in this probably than I do, but I think everything that we do should create a conversation that continues, and whether it's video or it's photos that you're posting, it's links that people are accessing, it's blogging, it's all of those things. So it's not just video, it's a variety of things, and really that we need to think about our marketing efforts way beyond, what we talked about yesterday in the session was that most associations are still looking at their marketing as it ends the day of the event, and they back it up from there. So if it's 6 months before and then it ends the day of the event, it should never end the day of the event. It should be something that continues, and video is one way to get that to continue, one of many ways to get that to continue. Steve, do you want to add anything to that?
How do you take that content and really be able to repurpose that throughout the year? And you can create education modules around this for your association members, for stakeholders, and even for the public. You look at TED as a great model. They've taken that content that happens on stage and then they've repurposed that, amortized the cost of it, if you want to look at it that way, throughout the year. And they get lots of viewers coming back and back and back. And then that goes viral because it's easier to send around to your other friends, colleagues, whoever.
I actually think this is a good example of that, because here we are live, but we can tape this and then turn it around, and then sections of it become content for the online audience on demand for a really long time to come. So I think this is a good example of that.
And then the other thing is, what you can also do is have sort of a facilitator's guide, so that you can really have, someone can take that if they have access to it and if they can download it, that they can use it within their organizations, and they can facilitate a discussion around that content for their own organizations as well.
Beth is my nerdy best friend, right?
Absolutely. I'm everybody's nerdy best friend.
I love that, because I was a nerd myself, and I'm so excited that now we have bonded together to help folks at meetings.
Absolutely. I mean, nerds are popular these days, and thanks to Big Bang Theory, but really thanks to technology, the nerds are the ones who are getting things done in the office.
All right, so one nerd to another. Let's jump right in. I know this is what you talk about. You talk about cool tools to make interesting websites, emails, really cool communication. Help us kind of summarize what your session's about and what folks in the audience can learn from.
Everybody has technology literally in the palm of their hands. So when we're talking about associations and we're talking about business professionals, they have the ability to do things they never could that they used to have to pay thousands of dollars for. Especially, specifically at this session, I was talking about design tools and tools for marketing and outreach and things. So right now in the palm of your hands, you have the ability to do a photo booth, which is what I use with this. You can do things like little handouts that you can put on the table instantly. I call them, some of them, bathtub apps, because you can actually do them. I do them in the bathtub with my iPad in a Ziploc bag. But they're instant, that you can do them on the go and make them and share them with people.
And I know you gave folks who came to your session sort of a take-home list, right? Can you share with our online audience some of the things that are actually on that list?
The top things that I love in the take-home list are Tagxedo, which allows you to do word art. So you can take any list of words or it'll analyze any page and in an instant create a beautiful graphic that you can use for your marketing, or your convention. You can encapsulate an event. You can also use a number of things like graphic editors, free. Like Adobe Photoshop is hundreds of dollars, and some small staff associations can't afford to have even one license. So there's Pixlr, Pixlr, and GIMP. They're both things that you can download or use online that allows you to have that capability just like Photoshop almost.
But let's talk about video too. Now it's pretty simple to incorporate video into an email blast or an e-newsletter or something like that, right?
Well, one of the things we talked about yesterday was actually from another speaker who was in the room. Ron Rosenberg talked about EyeJot, EYEJOT, and that allows you to embed video into an email and send it out. One of the other video things I love is Animoto, and that lets you take a number of pictures and little video clips and within seconds choose music, choose a theme, press a button, and you have a very upscale multimedia presentation that you can show to your attendees with pictures that you took in the hallway before they got into the luncheon.
I mean, that's pretty amazing, yes. Animoto, I'm a little scared that might put us all out of business because that is a really cool product. And also, I know before we were talking with Deborah and Steve about music, even music in terms of presentations and things like that, the audio and the sound quality also is a big deal, isn't it?
Absolutely, and there's an editing tool that is almost professional quality. You've probably heard of it, Audacity. And it's completely free, it's downloadable, and it's maintained by an open source community, so it's volunteers who run it and keep it updated, and it's high quality.
That's very cool. Some real specific tips. Now, we want to talk to Deb Greif. Deb, we want to bring you, come on in, and I understand you have some questions for Beth from our online audience.
Yeah. So Beth, one of the questions from the online audience, what are some tips to help encourage conference attendees to talk about your conference during the event? So they're seeing their exhibitors talking and their employees talking, but not so much their attendees.
So I really think that the photo booth idea and sharing pictures, people love pictures of themselves. And it's so easy to just, this is my photo booth, it's got all these nerdy glasses in it, but you can do any kind of fun, everybody loves to put them on. But you can do any kind of fun little thing and walk around, because people tweet pictures of themselves. People share information about themselves. So if you have different little educational pieces where they take a picture and have that, they love it. They share it, they send it home, and that's where you can get the news with all those tags and get those shared.
If you can get folks to tweet pictures of themselves, P.S., love those shades. Those are cool. If you can get people to tweet pictures of themselves, to post it on Facebook, suddenly they are marketing your show for you, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And they're telling people where they are and where they're having so much fun. It's such an engaging way, and it's so easy to do, especially with all of the apps that do the picture taking, not just photo booth, but anything, the filters, the fun. You can add your own logo to a picture in a flash.
Well, I'm a fan. What else do we have, Deb?
So this kind of expands a little bit on what you were just talking about, pictures, but so we know that more and more applications are utilizing video. So what video apps can associations use to communicate to their members? So it's just focused on video now.
Let me tell you about Powtoon. Powtoon I'm so excited about. It lets you take these awesome stop motion type animated videos that you would have to pay thousands of dollars for from a design company, and you can do them on your own and pay either, there are some that are free and some that are very low cost. So it's Powtoon. I made one about how to pronounce my last name, and it's charming and engaging rather than just telling people, hey, here it is. They can watch it, and some people have made it like with important points about legislation that have come up. They wrote white papers, nobody was paying attention, they did a Powtoon, and all of a sudden their members are asking questions and getting engaged. Great way to build up excitement.
Let's dive into our audience. What these folks are talking about is not just Generation X big picture, but Generation X as those of us move up into the corner office, specifically with associations, right? Baby boomers are starting to retire. Some of us are finally getting where we wanted to be in life, right? Let's start with you, ladies first, right? Let's talk a little bit about what that means for associations.
Well, I think it means a lot of things. I think one of the things I'm seeing a lot of energy around in this meeting is culture and how we treat employees and what that means. I know that there's some Generation Xers that are doing a lot of work in the HR arena in associations specifically. And I think that as we get folks who are newer, male or female, folks who are younger, who have different expectations about what their life as a whole should be, we're going to see different policies. We're going to see different ways of working. We're going to see different ways of collaborating. And, a real recognition that people come to work as a whole person, not just as a professional or a parent or anything, as a whole person. And I think that's really essential, and it's really going to impact the way we work and relate to our members who are going through the same things in all of their professions.
And you're seeing that at Oregon Medical Association, I'm sure, just as well as all associations are seeing that in their own.
Absolutely, yeah.
All right, Greg, let's switch to you. How are we supposed to deal with we're kind of the sandwich generation, right? If I may be so bold. We still are working with baby boomers. We also have the millennials. I joke that I'm an Xer who has to live like a millennial because I have to pay attention to all the technology. So help us out with a little bit of interacting with everybody.
Well, I think part of it is that Xers, there's a lot of research that has talked about how Xers have not conformed in corporate America to the norms. I mean, that Xers in general are abdicating from leadership. They're not willing to go into leadership and it's a smaller generation. And part of that is because as a whole, I think often Xers are more demanding of the balance. Right? And so they say, I don't need to go become the head of the company. I can still run the division. I can still be a leader. I don't have to take all the pressure and the stress. So I think you're going to get, with Xers, you get people who are building cultures that match the culture we've wanted. Right. So, we've had a lot of organizations kind of say, well, we're going to be flexible. We're going to be really family friendly. We're going to be but the culture really wasn't. The policies were, the culture wasn't. Right. So I think the greatest thing Xers are going to do is we're going to match the culture with the policy. And it's just, but it's also, I will tell you, as a new CEO and as a CEO who manages a number of millennials, sometimes I think, maybe my flexibility is too much.
I wonder about that.
Because it's full-on management.
Right.
It's really, you manage with policies, you lead with culture.
Oh, that's well said.
Right?
Say that again.
You manage with policies, you lead with culture. And leadership is really exhausting.
Right.
Policies is easy.
Yes, it is. And I think you have to look at that culture, make sure it matches the policy.
There was a time within my lifetime, not my work span at the OMA, when we had 52 committees. Wow. Nobody went home,
True, 52? That's too many.
I mean, so maybe that was 25, 30 years ago. And guess what they did? They had a cocktail hour. The culture was very, very different, and it was not built on people who wanted to go home. People thought this was part of being a professional. I volunteer my time. I don't get home till 10. And that's how it is. And that is not how I want to work. It's not how my members want to work anymore. And so as I build a culture in my office that addresses that, I also have to look at, nighttime and weekend meetings really are not real popular with younger staff. Well, I might accept that as just part of the job, but they may, that might not be fun for them. So and guess what? When we start saying, hey, it'd be better if we had the executive committee meeting at 4 instead of at 6, our executive committee went, thank you. That is so much better for us. So it's really interesting to see that. I totally agree with what Greg said. We're sort of building the culture, and it's a really liberating thing to be able to say, this is the way it can be. It has been that way, but it can be this way, and we can still get work done, and in fact, be better set to adapt to what our next generation of leaders really need.
Well, and I have a sort of strange question, but sometimes I wonder, too, if the generations aren't just based on when you were born, but also your mindset. I mean, I know a lot of 65-year-olds that actually think we're like millennials and vice versa. So it's not just sort of age, is it? There's so many other things connected. What would you add to that?
There's an openness to change that's really important, and that you can find anywhere. It's maybe rarer in folks who have a deeper history in the workplace and a longer attachment to the way things have been. But I spoke a couple years ago about a member that I had who was one of my best change agents, and she was well north of 60.
Right.
So,
and I think we also, as Xers, we often fall into traditional behavior. We model what we know, right? You always grow up to be your parents. Well, you always grow up to be the bosses you work for.
Absolutely.
So when I came to TMA a little over a year and a half ago, I got rid of the dress code. It was business casual, and I just said, there's no dress code. And I had some pushback even from some of my other Xer senior staffers, and they said, but we have to have rules. And I said, okay, so here's how we're going to do the dress code. If you're on your way to work and you run into a friend and they ask you where you're going and you say, I'm going to the office, and they look at you funny, you're not dressed appropriately for work.
That's actually pretty real. That's real.
And I
so
still
no bathing suits and
right.
flip-flops.
I
but
still
come
like
on.
suits. It's just easy. It's
Right.
just easier. You just
Animals for
right.
grown-ups,
We're
right?
animals
I
for
mean,
grown-ups.
yeah.
But I would wear jeans, and I said you could wear jeans anytime, and I wear jeans, but it was winter when I started, so I always wore it with a shirt and a sweater.
Right.
And one day and when spring came, I wore jeans and I wore just a casual out shirt. And
Right.
for the first time, one of my millennials said, "Wow, you finally dress casually." And I said, "What do you mean? I wore jeans all winter." She goes, she didn't see the jeans because she saw the dress shirt and the
So that
the
wasn't
sweater.
casual at all to
No,
them.
so when I finally wore the shirt out and I
Right.
came in, so I actually have worn shorts twice this year to work.
Wow, just to be casual?
Well, yeah,
or-
just to show that because we do go to what's normal, and
Right,
it is that
right.
concept of you can say the policy because extras have all worked for organizations that have great
Right.
policies, but are anything but non-traditional workplaces.
Well, and I think too, not just dress code, but in general, it always depends on your audience. You know, we don't really have a dress code either, and sometimes people would show up in really short shorts. Okay, that might be okay for our office, but not when you're going out to conduct interviews. You
Right.
know, I mean, whatever the situation is, are you at the annual meeting? Are you speaking, or are you in the office? You know, right? Isn't that sort of all applicable?
Oh, completely. And I mean, I could go on and on about short shorts.
Those would not be appropriate for office.
But
you know?
that would take a long time. But I think, yeah, a lot of it's contextual. It's that to me is less a matter of control and command than sort of respect and being a little bit of a chameleon with integrity. I mean, you can recognize that people, if you're wearing a micro mini at a board meeting, you're just not going to be taken as seriously as if you are not. And if you're a guy and you're wearing a tie-dyed shirt, although I had a president wear a tie-dyed shirt to so never mind, that's a bad example.
So disregard that.
Exactly. But I mean, what's funny is that our members have been dressing more casually at our meetings for a
Right.
long time than staff does. We still feel like the doctor's here, I better put on my suit jacket. And I don't think they really expect that of us anymore. So it's been interesting to watch that sort of push back at us.
But it's bigger too, the challenge you have because you're a leader and you've got a lot on your plate.
Right.
And so when you send, as a CEO, an extra CEO or any CEO, you send an email on a Sunday night at 9 o'clock, you're sending a message that you're working at 9 o'clock on Sunday. And so I've asked for intervention from my team, and I said, I expect no answers, it's just I'm working, I don't expect an answer from you. But I'm not going to do delayed send and all that, but it's just me, because it popped into my head, because I think about work all the time. But I also bail out at 2 o'clock on a Friday afternoon and unplug.
Right.
So you've got, you need to, the walk thing is really critical, and I think that's the hardest thing for me as moving into is how to, because I work for some great people that gave me so much freedom, and you emulate what you grew up in,
Right, what you
and
know.
and how you break some of those molds because it's comfortable. When you
Right,
get
right.
stressful, you go back to what you know.
It's true. I mean, I grew up in the hierarchy. You know,
Right.
there was something about the guy who'd been there 20 years, and he garnered respect, frankly, whether he deserved it or not. And so I've had to sort of break out of that mold because the new person may garner just as much or more respect. And I think that is sort of where we grew up a little different than the millennials in terms of that, don't you think?
I do think so, and I think that's one of the most challenging dynamics. We're just touching on sort of how hard it is to manage people. Managing people is the most exhausting part of my job. And, encouraging folks in a way that's not condescending, in a way that's not hierarchical, trying to mentor younger people to say, no, listen, really, if you want to be taken seriously, you'll need to do some of these things. At the same time that I have to struggle against, wait a minute, don't have hierarchical expectations.
Yes.
Don't expect people to respect you just because your title is what it is, So that's been a real fun dynamic for me to struggle with as we get really bright people, as we get really, comers, that you really want to grow and rise in your organization or outside your organization because that's a victory for you,
The other thing that we're going to struggle with, that it's going to be really hard, is we're the first generation that walks the talk of hire smart, talented people, groom them to leave.
Yeah.
So I just lost a staffer who was one of my superstars.
Yeah.
And she like out of the blue. And I literally was like, I took it so personally. I'm like, what? I failed. I have failed.
Why did
She's
you
leaving. She's leaving. She can't. And then I had to step back and I listened to why she was leaving the skill. She's going to something entirely different. And I said, well, Greg, you've been telling everybody you hire smart, talented people who are probably going to go faster than our ability to grow them internally for
Right.
the organization to grow, to challenge them. So I had to really step back and celebrate that. But the first item was like, oh my God, how do you replace her and all that? But again, you hire smart, talented people, you encourage them, you grow them. You're going to have to live with that 2 to 3 years. if you can keep somebody for 2 to 3 years, it's talented and smart and growing. If your organization isn't growing really hard, you're a victory.
That's right, and that's so different, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Let's bring in, hopefully, some questions from some Xers. I'm sure you're out there. Deb Greif is going to join us again. Deb, come on up. Do you have questions for Betsy or Greg?
I do. There's a lot of engagement in the online platform, and Roger in there said, as a baby boomer, ouch. So I'm sharing that with you.
Oh, come on, Roger,
so,
we still love you.
Yeah. So Rena asked, how do we approach the changing landscape of membership? How do we convince baby boomers how important it is to diversify your revenue streams? You know, she talked about how membership in the annual meeting is the focus, so direction there.
Please, if anyone has that answer, that would be super duper to share with me. No, I think the key is understanding in all things what got you here is not what's going to take you there. And for us, in our industry, membership has changed. Just the way physicians work now has changed dramatically and is accelerating. You know, 3 years ago, a third of the physicians in Oregon were employed. Now it's over 50%. In 3 more years, it'll be over 75%. And that is not who belongs to us right now. So we have to figure out, oh my gosh, we have to present a totally different suite of services and maybe charge for them instead of having them just be part of membership. We have to look at different membership models. We have to understand that membership is just one way people can interact with us and not the only way. And I think that's a huge mindset shift for our staff to think, hey, maybe we should aggressively market our events to non-members. What do you think? You know, honest to goodness, that's something we never did. So some of the things are going to be big challenges and some of them are just shift your focus a little bit. So
I still though go back to the association membership, professional association. You're going to join and engage when it serves you.
Absolutely.
Whether that serves your wallet, your soul, your whatever. So we just have to get really good at figuring out how to be there when they need us.
Yep, absolutely.
And that's exhausting and hard too.
And expect that it might not be continual, right?
Correct.
I mean, I recognized in my very early days in association management, I had a lot of time to give to ASAE and to my state SAE because I didn't have kids and my job wasn't awful. So now it's going to come and go in waves. So we have to prepare for that.
One more question, I think, from Deb.
Yeah, is
okay.
that right? So your session speaks to members of Generation X becoming the new leadership of associations. This attendee being closer in age to the millennial generation, do you think it will be easier for Generation X to manage this large incoming workforce?
Another $1 million question.
No,
it won't.
No, I think managing people is always going to be a challenge, because what's clear to you is clear to you, right? If we think we can put everybody into a box and say, you're Generation X, you get this, you're Generation Y, you get that, we're not going to get very far. I think the biggest challenge we have is getting out of our mindset that managing people is some kind of mechanical function.
Right.
So
it's not going to be easier. I think it's actually going to be more challenging and potentially more rewarding. And I say that because there's a few strengths millennials bring that Xers don't have. Xers don't play well in teams. We're very independent. We don't play well in teams unless we choose the team.
Right.
If we can choose our team, we play well together. Millennials come with a sense of team play and team dynamic and being able to manage in a team that is, I think, incredibly underexploited in a good, it is how you motivate that, how you use that. But that's exhausting because it's not one size fits all. You have to be a coach.
Right.
You know what? Coaches don't have a singular style. They adjust their style for whatever the player needs in the moment, which is what's going to be required, particularly, I believe, from millennials and the younger. So it'll be great things. They're going to be very exasperating. You're going to invest a lot in them, and they're going to leave. But then you're going to bring them back. They're going to work for me for a while, then they're going to work for Betsy for a while, and then they're going to go work for somebody else for a while, and then I'm going to get them back. And that's okay. But no, that's good.
That's good.
That's good.
And that's the part. I so empathize with you saying that it was really hard not to take it personally when a staff member left. And that's the flip side of we can't look at people as things, as objects. It hurts when they go, but we have to fight that hurt and just recognize it's going to come back, and it's all right.
John, we're excited that you're with us. First, give us kind of an overview of what's going on right here. So much action on the show floor.
Well, this is the second day of our expo, and we have, we do it from 10 to approximately 1:30 every day, and this is an opportunity for association executives and our industry partners to come together and talk about the business of running meetings.
Absolutely.
And that's exactly what they do, and I think, what what our folks know is that the association buyer is a relationship buyer.
For sure.
They buy on the relationship. They buy on people that from people they know, and can do and want to do business with. And so this is really about exhibitors and our industry partners meeting with associations who do business with them already, and obviously trying to get new customers. So it's a little bit of both.
You know, I'll speak to that for a moment because the relationships in the industry, we keep seeing people walk by that we know. And we're live on the internet and we're paying attention to you, but as someone we know walks by, we kind of give them a wave because we know them personally.
Sure.
And that's really what it's all about, I think.
Exactly.
Let's jump in a little bit. You may have just heard Betsy and Greg, we were talking about Generation Xers. I'm an Xer, we're moving up, you know, the baby boomers may be starting to retire, we've got the millennials. Let's apply that now to the demographics of associations in general from an ASAE point of view.
Well, if you think about it, and I had this conversation with the Young Professionals Committee earlier this week. You know, the new 18 is 26.
Yeah.
So people are making career choices and life choices later. So instead of people getting married and deciding what they want to be an engineer at the age of 22,
right,
they're making that decision a little bit later in life.
Right.
And so, and I think that's true of associations. That's one feature. The second feature is that most people who go to work for associations have already learned a skill like marketing or government relations or membership. And so, you know, associations aren't hiring younger people right out of school. They're hiring people who are already have learned a skill and have a discipline that they can apply. So I think that what it means for associations, that's at a staff level. At a membership level, the same thing. People are picking their career a little bit later, so I think it's probably not realistic to think you're going to have a great many members under the age of 35. But I think you are going to start, you should start to move into that space by the time you hit 35 to 55 to 60, and that's on one scale. The other scale is that because, as you mentioned earlier, boomers are staying in the workplace longer. The new 60 is 70, and so I think associations have a real opportunity to really provide products and services to an older demographic. Right. So you have the younger demographic on one hand and you have the older demographic on the other. So I think there are many opportunities for associations.
Absolutely. And you know, what you just said I think is key because it also goes to the changing membership models.
Exactly.
The membership models have got to work for a millennial, they've got to work for a boomer, they've got to work across generations. Let's talk a little bit about that and how you see the model changing.
Well, the membership model is changing because of technology, and you know it's really all about mobile. Mobile is a game changer. It's it is, you know, the advent of the PC 30 years ago, and mobile is exactly like that. It changes the game considerably, and it changes the game because most associations, ASAE included, try to create an experience. This meeting here is an experience.
Absolutely.
And so they try to create an experience for their members. Mobile allows the user or the member to create their own experience with the association. So the association has to be able to organize its content, organize its platforms for distribution in a way that is mobile friendly and enables the member to really engage. And so what we're seeing is that some members want to engage at a higher level than others, and some members are going to want to pay more for that engagement. Some are going to want to pay less because they don't want as much. Absolutely. So the model is evolving and changing. And so I think that what we're going to see going forward is continued evolution of that model as mobile technology changes the landscape.
Right.
And what we really are interested in addition to membership, is engagement.
Absolutely.
If we have people engaged, in ASAE's case, if we have association executives, professionals engaged, then from my perspective, you know, that's 3/4 of the battle.
Absolutely.
Because once they're engaged, I believe we can keep them engaged.
For sure. Why don't we talk specifically too about like what we're doing here? These live webcasts, virtual shows, all of that technology is changing how we deliver content, isn't it?
So I believe that fundamentally people want to go to face-to-face meetings. I think 20 years ago when online learning became you know, a hot topic, people were concerned that, geez, I'm not going to go to a trade show anymore because I can get it online, or I'm not going to go to a convention or a conference because I can get it online. That never happened. It became additive.
Absolutely.
And so I think technology is additive to the face-to-face experience, and mobile just makes it that more additive. So what happens is that people want to go to a face-to-face meeting. In fact, we have one of our highest attended meetings ever here. So people are still going to face-to-face meetings, but at the meeting, to your point, they expect to be able to be on Twitter. They expect to be able to communicate with each other. They expect to be able to, get information about the show and conferences in real time.
Right.
And so I think that's a game changer for us too.
Absolutely.
But I think for Bob TV going forward, the opportunity then to produce a virtual show from the face-to-face meeting is a significant opportunity.
Right.
Particularly if you can aggregate content in various verticals,
Right.
like finance or health, etc. If you can aggregate that in various verticals, then you can have a quality product that could be distributed via online to audiences that may not be able to attend this show this
Right.
year, but I think that's the future.
But
I think
if
that
you've
is the
engaged
future.
them, they may come in the future. That's,
Exactly.
That's
That's
exactly
exactly
what we're
right.
looking.
And that's
Right.
what we're finding. The virtual piece is actually a promotion for the face-to-face.
For sure.
We did a virtual piece 3 years ago, and what we found was an interesting experience, and that was we had a number of people sign up for it, but they liked the production, they liked the quality, they liked the content,
Right.
but they said it was kind of like going to a party and standing outside a window looking in
Oh, yeah.
at all their friends having a good time, having a drink, and they
And
really
you said fantastic.
They really couldn't engage. So to your point, it really is making it a promotion.
Absolutely. All right, let's bring in Deb Greif. Speaking of
Okay.
the online audience, we don't
Okay.
want you to feel like you're at the party looking in the window, right? But come next year for sure. So Deb, tell us what folks out there are asking.
Yeah, they've been asking a lot, and there's a lot of discussion around generations, and so I find this question relevant. The boards of most associations do not have the millennial perspective represented, so attracting millennials as future association members is a hot topic. Do you believe that millennials within associations should have more of a voice, and how do you give them that voice?
Well, I think any board needs to be representative of the demographic that the membership is, that the organization is serving. And I think that having millennials on the board is having some, I mean, depending on the size of the board. So in ASAE's case, we have a board of about 18. We want to represent large trades, small trades, large professional, small professional, the geographic around the country, as well as the demographic in terms of ages. So we have two that are in the, I would say, 35 range. We also have people who are in the 60 to 65 range. So I think we have a diversity on the board, and I think that whole idea of having an inclusive board, because an inclusive board with different opinions is going to make better decisions. So absolutely, I think associations need to work hard to engage the millennials.
We would like to introduce John Spence, whose session is called Game Changer, Turning Ideas into Action.
Yes, Karen.
Your timing is perfect because we've been talking about tons of ideas,
Great.
lots of guests coming in here, but your expertise is really on making people accountable,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
making them actionable.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about that. First of all, what's your main takeaway you want people to know?
Well, I think the main takeaway from the session this morning and the main takeaway around accountability is that there's a process that you have to use to make people accountable, and most folks, it's a 5-step process. Most organizations miss the first two, which is when you're going to hold someone accountable for a key job, a project, something you need to get done, there's two major steps. First one is 100% clarity plus authority. In other words, you have to be exceedingly clear about what's the outcome I want, how are we going to measure it, what's the due date, so the person knows exactly what's expected of them. That's step. Then you need to give them enough authority so that they can actually implement that. That's step one. Then step two is to gain agreement, to have that person look at you in the eyes and say, I understand the due date, I understand the metrics, I understand the measurements, I have the resources, you've given me authority, I will deliver this.
Right.
I've given speeches, I was just in Australia, New Zealand, and across the US. I've been in front of about 3,500 small business owners association groups,
Right.
and only 2 people have said that on a scale of 1 to 10, that they do that effectively out of almost 3,000 people.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Let me ask you that. When you're trying to do that, to get to that clarity and that authority, is it better to do it one-on-one individually with people or as a team, or does it not really matter?
Great question. When you get to accountability, there's always one person accountable. Maybe the team leader, whatever, and you may have the team available or around, but the key idea there is it's going to be one person at the end of the day held accountable.
Okay.
So it's best on one-on-one, and oftentimes, thanks, sorry. They're cueing me to look at the camera. Oftentimes,
This is
it's,
live.
yeah, I know, it's live. Oftentimes it's better to oftentimes sit down with the employee and then say, you write it out. You tell me how you're going to deliver this. That way that they're not confused. They can't say, oh, I didn't understand. You go, no,
Right.
you wrote it.
Right.
You did the measurements.
So actually have them write it, not
Have them write it
and
out.
give it to them.
Right.
That's an interesting concept and something very specific I think
Yeah.
people can use for sure.
Yes.
Okay, so we talked, so they have to have clarity, they have to have authority, right?
The
And then
last
what's-
3 steps
Yeah.
are track and post. So if you're going to hold someone accountable and tell them they've got to get a project done on time, you've got to give them the information and the where they stand. So it's got to be clear, simple, easy to understand, easy to view, so they know exactly what they're doing and where they stand.
Right.
The next one is coach, mentor, and train. So that if someone is struggling and they're having a hard time, that you rush in with resources, help, coaching, mentoring, so that people understand that the tracking and posting is not punishment, it's to help you be the best you can possibly be.
Hey.
And then after that, it's when someone is successful, praise them lavishly, and if someone doesn't meet it, deal decisively with mediocrity.
And I've heard a lot about how the praise should be in public also, right?
Yes,
Isn't there
praise
really
in
a
public,
reward for that?
criticize in private.
Right.
And also praise according to the social style of the person. If they're an introvert, the last thing you want to do is bring them up in front of the whole company and have them be embarrassed because they'll never do it again.
Good point.
And if they're an extrovert, the last thing you want to do is sneak in their office and quietly say it. You want to, blow a horn and let everybody know.
Right.
Because the extrovert wants everyone to know they did a great job.
But let me ask you a question, and this is just a personal thought, but to association leaders who might be out there, CEOs, leaders in their company, it can be exhausting, can't it? I mean, it's a lot of work, isn't it?
It's a tremendous amount of work, but that's the job of the leader.
And it's worth it at the
Oh,
end
absolutely.
of the day.
The number one factor that drives highly engaged, satisfied, and loyal members is highly engaged, satisfied, and loyal employees.
Absolutely.
If your people are engaged, they love what they do, they feel that the culture is strong, they love the place they work, they go out and take great care of your members.
Oh, that's a great point.
If you take great care of your people, they will run the business for you.
Absolutely. So that accountability starts in the office, and then with that kind of an attitude, they're going to feel great about it. They're going to go out, recruit new members. Boom, all of a sudden you have a strong organization.
And then what happens is you create a strong association where the members know that they can trust the leadership to deliver on promises, get things done, move the association forward, constantly be innovative, new, because they see a living example of leadership, accountability, execution within their own association.
Absolutely, very cool. Speaking to the online audience, now we want to bring in Deb Greif. Deb's been moderating our questions. Stay put, John.
I'm not
She's
moving.
got some questions for you, actually, so we want to throw those out.
Yeah. So what do you see as the missing or the most relevant trait or exercise executives need to do a better job of incorporating to achieve excellence in business?
Okay, so the number one trait I see executives that's missing that they need, really, there's 2 things. I'm going to give you 2. Number 1 is to be a living example of what you want your followers to be. To truly walk the talk and be a human example of what to expect. And number 2 is a clear, vivid, compelling vision, getting a well-communicated vision and strategy for growth. As the leader, you need to set the pace and tell people, this is the way we behave, look at me, and this is where we're going together, what we're trying to achieve together. Without that clear vision and that clear example, you will not have a successful organization.
Okay, and you might feel that this is a little off the wall, but it asked if you felt like there was a shelf life for that an employee would see that they should stay with an association for this long and then move on because they've overstayed their welcome.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say overstayed their welcome, but if you hire really, really good people, after 5 to 7 years, if they don't have a strong career track to senior management, they probably should leave, because if they're that talented, they need to go and find a bigger opportunity or start their own business. So I always hire people knowing that if I can keep them for 5 to 7 years, then I've done really, really well.
Good. Very cool. It seems like there's a lot of discussion going on, Deb, right? Especially about different generations. And before we let you go, I know there's been a lot of talk about Generation X, bringing in the boomers, bringing the millennials. Does any of this differ in terms of generation, or is it across the board?
Oh, no, it differs strongly. My generation, I'm a boomer, or the last year, when I went into business, it was when the boss said jump, you said, how high, sir? It was a man, and they had all. Now the millennials look up and they say, if you treat me with respect, and I see that you're competent, then I will trust you as my leader. So it's a funny flip-flop that the leader actually has to prove competence and show respect before a millennial will respect them. A lot of people say millennials aren't loyal. That's not true. They can be extremely loyal as long as they feel that. And then the last thing with them is they want more life balance than the rest of us had.
Yeah, I agree with that.
They want to leave it, they'll do their 50, 60 hours maybe, but they've got hobbies, they want to go visit their friends, they want to volunteer, they want to go home and make some craft brew, whatever it might be.
Xers like craft brew too, boomers like craft brew too, right?
But that's, they're like, I'm going to work hard, but I'm not giving my life to the company Whereas a
Right.
few years earlier, it was dedicate your life to the company.
Okay. No, it's very interesting. And I think accountability is important no matter what the generation, so I'm really glad we had a chance to kind of talk about getting this stuff into action.
Oh yeah, ideas are useless unless you can't put them into good, strong action.
You know, before you leave, if folks out there want more information, tell us how they can find it.
Sure, it's easy. It's just john@johnspence.com or just johnspence.com. And I've got tons of free resources there, blog, all kinds of things to help people. And there's a click through there for a free video channel.
Cool.
Where I've got a lot of great content on accountability, leadership, high
Nice.
performance teams, things like that.
So let's jump right in.
Okay.
Do you want to start with the pricing? That seems to get a lot of attention. I don't know. What do you think?
I do. I think so because I think there's been a mentality for a long time that we are nonprofits. And if you start thinking about being a not-for-profit organization, then you start thinking about there are some areas that you need to price competitively, but also to make money. Because
Right,
organizations
right.
do a lot of activities that aren't, that they can't charge for.
Right.
Or that they can't charge what it costs.
Right.
So I think there's a lot of interest, and people want to know how to get it done.
Absolutely. And I know when we talked to folks after the session, a lot of them were saying they were intrigued by the value pricing versus the cost.
Yes.
Right? And I think that can apply to all of us, actually. Explain that just a little bit so the online audience knows what you mean.
Sure. Well, for years I've worked in associations, and when I worked there, we would look at, we have a program, and with that program we needed to think through what were the costs and then how much extra we would charge. And that was cost plus pricing. And we've changed it. So I think there's a new way to look at it, which is not just what does it cost, but what is the value of something, and how do you develop that value and build in pricing that's connected to that.
Absolutely. All right, since we're speaking of value pricing, I think we have some sound bites actually with attendees from your session yesterday. So we're going to listen into what folks had to say after your session.
Great.
Members versus customers. I thought that was a good discussion. You know, when we look at it at our association, we look at it from the perspective of partners versus customers. You know, for example, you have customers utilize your products and services. They're consumers. But when you look at members, they're really partners or shareholders. And that's a big difference when you're trying to decide what are you building for these people. Your partners or your shareholders, they're going to use more. They're going to get more value. They're also probably going to get more out of this.
I really liked her suggestions about pricing models, about the good, better, best, to give people options on what they actually want to get, not to break things out based on whether you're a student or a professional or what category of membership you are. I think potentially there's definitely potential there for us to be able to use something like that, because we know that not everyone's using everything that's bundled together just because they're in that stage of their career. They might want something different.
I thought it was great, it was very dynamic. It gave you very clear, concise information that was usable, that you can take back to the office and actually implement the next day. I want to look at pricing structure. We just did a recent survey, and our members told us that they felt $190 is too expensive for dues. So one of the things that we're looking at doing is setting up a pricing sensitivity study, but taking that a step further into looking at how that might play out for membership models. Membership is not dead. I don't care what anybody says. It's not dead, it's not going away, but it is changing, and we need to be able to change with our members while staying true to our core and who we are.
All right, some really good feedback there after your session. It was really fun to catch up with people and to hear about it. Speaking of feedback, we want to bring Deb Greif back from Bob TV. And Deb, tell us what the online audience is saying and wants to know from Sherry.
Yeah, obviously membership is a very hot topic. In the environment, we're hearing a lot about generations and also a lot of questions with technology. How is technology affecting everything? So one of the questions came in, it's kind of fast forwarding what technology trends are there affecting membership and direction for associations and membership organizations.
Sure. Well, I think what's interesting about technology and organizations is that it's not just focused on younger professionals. I think it's based on your interest area, how you want to get the information. I one time worked with an organization that put together a conference thinking they would attract the young professionals to it, and it attracted actually C-suite executives because they couldn't get out of the office. So I think as people look at technology, they shouldn't focus immediately on an audience, but think about it as a way to deliver benefits and value to a variety of different audiences who prefer or for necessity need to connect with them through the use of technology.
You know, something else that I wanted to jump in on that I thought was really cool during your session was how to sort of group the different kinds of memberships. I know As an example, you had young professionals. Okay, sadly, I don't think I can attend that anymore, so it excludes me. Let's talk about that a little bit, grouping them.
Sure. Well, I like to look at how to deliver value and how to develop membership categories even based on their interests, their attitudes, their motivations, and their needs, and not based on their age or their career stage or their gender or the specialty area. So when you start looking at it by how do people want to connect and what do they need out of the organization, and you rethink about packaging benefits that are more customized and designed based on that, then you may have a more diverse audience in different areas.
Absolutely.
And it can attract young professionals or people who are mid-career or towards the end of their career.
And also to go by what their behaviors really are, not just what they say their preferences are, right? That was also a takeaway.
Exactly. I mean, everybody has that frustration of, we ask how should we communicate with people, and they say email, but they don't open our emails.
Right.
Or how do you want to learn, and they say, I want to learn in person, but in the last 2 years they haven't attended a conference.
Right.
So you need to look at behaviors, and organizations have that data in their database.
Right.
They can find out how people behave, not just what their interests and their needs are.
So that's sort of taking that extra step beyond the survey, right? You got to go to what folks are really doing. Ron is president of Quality Talk Inc., and he's talking about how to get more done in less time. And I got to tell you, after sitting here for an hour hearing all this advice, I need to know how to get it all done in about half as much time. So start us off. Tell us about your session.
Well, basically, we talked about 7 proven strategies to help people get twice the work done in half the time. And people are just running into so many issues now. There's too much to do. We've got not enough resources. And we've had to cut these associations down to the bone because of the recent economic problems, that you get these platitudes like, work smarter, not harder, do more with less. And it's just a situation now where what was working 6 years ago or 6 months or sometimes even 6 weeks ago isn't going to work anymore. So we've got to go beyond time management 101.
Absolutely. So help us out. Give us some of those tips. How can we do that?
Well, first thing is you've got to recognize that success is a moving target. And so if you take a look, for example, at men's tennis in the late 1970s, early 1980s, it was dominated, owned by John McEnroe, Jimmy Connors, and Bjorn Borg. And yet, if you look at tennis today, the level of performance, the level of excellence, any one of those guys playing at the peak of their skills would not make a Division I college team.
Wow, that's scary and true, isn't it?
Right?
I also don't know if I would get into the college that I went to, University of Florida, great school. But, I mean, the world is changing, isn't it?
Yes.
It's harder to do what we did in the past.
Yeah. And so really what you need to be doing is looking at different ways to approach things. And so a lot of it comes down to who you're surrounding yourself with. You want to make sure that you're getting good resources. Like, for example, at ASAE here, it's just a room full, a whole conference, a whole convention center full of people that are at the top of their careers, that have a lot of skills to share. And so there are a lot of great skills you can learn in the session, a lot of skills you can learn actually here on the show floor, as well as at meals and outside the setting. And so you want to make sure that you're getting the resources. You want to have like a personal board of directors, the people that will fill the gaps in your experience, the skills that you're lacking, and they can actually help you with that.
Right.
Then you want to,
yeah, we want to make sure you know which camera. So
that's right, they told me to talk to you, not the camera. I was trying to be a
keep talking to me, keep talking to me. But Ron, this is where we can see our audience. So when they have questions and things like that, we want to make sure they can see your face, not just profile. But help me out. So all right, so I've got to make sure I have all the right resources. Got to make sure that I'm headed for success, which might be a moving target.
Right.
What are some of those other tips? I'm like hungry to learn them and take notes here.
Well, there's a couple of it actually going to freak people out. So for example, one of the things that we talk about is checking your email once or twice a day, or even not at all. And I told that in the session this morning, and everybody looked like they'd seen a ghost, like, oh, what? And so what you want to do is you want to make sure that you put on an autoresponder message that says, hey, we check email twice a day, once at 10:30, once at 3:30, because we're focusing our time on what's urgent, which may be your particular situation. When we get to the email, we give that our full attention.
Interesting.
So what you want to really do is turn that notification off. So where it says, bing, a new email's come, don't look at it, because it may be something important, or it may be an email from Kembe Mugumbu from Nigeria.
I get that one. You know that person too, huh? It's true.
Here's one that freaks people out. No unscheduled incoming phone calls.
No unscheduled incoming phone calls.
Right, so the phone rings, our basic first instinct is the phone rings, pick it up.
Yep.
The problem is the best you can hope for is that somebody you need to speak with, and neither one of you is prepared for the call. You're not prepared because you didn't know they were calling, and they're not prepared because frankly they didn't expect you to even be there to answer the phone.
Right.
So we use different resources, call scheduling tools. The one we use is called Visita, where people schedule calls on a calendar. It
I
links
love it.
with our iCal, it links with Google Calendar, it links with Outlook. And so if people want to schedule a call with me, they just go to ronscalendar.com, they pick a time, it locks it in,
Nice.
and then when they call, I'm ready, they're ready, and it's more productive.
Those are two very specific takeaways I can apply. You know, I can go back next week and I can look at my email. You're going to have to wean me off email, though, I have to say. Maybe I'll start by going only 4 times a day and then down to 2, if that's okay. Something else I heard recently I want to get your opinion on was scheduling meetings to be shorter. That there's nothing wrong with actually scheduling a beginning time and an end time that may only be 15 minutes.
Yes.
Is that a good thing? I feel like sometimes every meeting takes an hour.
No, it's absolutely true. And one of the things that we talked about in the session was this concept of the taximeter.
Right.
And so what we're talking about there is basically you look at the loaded resource rate for everybody on your team. So maybe this one is this grade, this one has this much. And then when they come into the meeting, you kind of click, okay, Bob's here, okay, Jennifer's here. And then when the last person comes in and you actually start the meeting, you hit the meeting start button, and up on the wall it's like a taximeter.
Oh, I love
it. And it says, great, now that you're here, we can start the meeting. And look, we've wasted $621.35 of the organization's money because you were late. So if you do that, if you keep things on a schedule,
yes.
One of the things we talk about is you really, when it's done, it's done. So for example, I'm flying back this afternoon. On my schedule, if you looked at my calendar, it says write this article for this newsletter. I've got 1 hour allocated. I have a countdown timer on my screen. When that countdown timer reaches 0, the article's done.
That is a phenomenal idea. What do you think? Okay, so let's say you've scheduled 20 minutes for your meeting. Everybody's there. It's the end of the 20 minutes. Is it okay to sort of take a poll and decide we're going to go longer, or are you done?
Well, in terms of meetings, if it's, what you do is you extend the meeting, like here's another 5 minutes. It's like what you do on the floor of a Congress hall. You know, it's like, I yield 5 minutes to the gentleman from Missouri or something.
A set time.
Right, but really what you want to do is, and sometimes good enough is good enough, and sometimes done is better than perfect.
Absolutely.
And that's
good
important.
point. Very good point. We're going to bring Deb Greif in again. This is generating a lot of questions online.
Super.
So
Hi,
Deb, bring it to us.
Hey Ron, so I have a question from the online audience about scheduling time for professional development. Is that a priority? What time of day is that? So for instance, I'm thinking that the question was referring to if I want to watch a video or read my newspaper, or when do I schedule that?
Yeah, well, you schedule it when your good time is, and that's important. You have to know what your sweet spot is. So for example, I asked the group this morning, how many of you are morning people? And a bunch of hands went up because I had the first morning session. I said, how many of you think morning people are insane? And 3 hands went up because the people who think it's insane weren't there. But what you want to do is find out what's your sweet spot. So for example, for me, I'm a morning person. I get up in the morning, I'll go run, I'll do my exercise, I'll do whatever I need to do, because I know if I don't get it done in the morning, I'll have 5 different excuses why not to do it the rest of the day. My wife, on the other hand, is an evening person, so she'll get her best work done after dinner. So you want to find out what's your sweet spot. If you're a morning person, get that work done at your best time. If you're an evening person, get it done then. But sometimes you really need to sequester yourself. You need to do what you do with children. The kid misbehaves, put the child in timeout. Sometimes you need to give yourself a timeout.
Absolutely.
Lock yourself away on your productive time and get that work done. And professional development is critical, and it's what gets jettisoned right away in a crunch.
Right, for sure.
To work being a state of mind, do you believe in that? Do you think that's helpful? Where I think it refers to, like on Saturday, if I turn my computer on and spend 10 minutes answering business emails, I'm working, and then if I switch over to personal, I'm now not working.
I think you need to set boundaries, and that's a real problem people have. The reason we're so overwhelmed is because we don't know where to spend the time. We make ourselves too accessible. People will say, oh, you've got a minute? Yeah, but it's not a minute. Everybody's got some attention span problems. So you want to make sure that you're really focusing your best effort on your best time and really getting the most out of every day. You got to make every second count.
And I think that really goes to this sort of environment we're in right now where everybody expects something immediately. Just because the email flies in doesn't mean you have to answer it 5 seconds later, right? It's okay to wait a few hours, isn't it?
It is, and this is rules of expectation, rules of engagement. And so when you say, we've got this autoresponder, we answer emails at 10:30 and 3:30, but if it's an emergency, here's where you can contact us. There are really very few things that are emergencies.
Right. Well,
everybody has a problem with attention span. It's not just me. So thank you.
That's right.
I wanted to talk briefly about that. The whole accessibility. We've trained people that we are supposed to respond. In the olden days, you wrote letters. Letters took weeks to get somewhere. You put thought into it. Now we fully expect that we're going to get a response instantly. You'll see 3 middle school kids walking down the mall texting each other.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it's not good. I heard a guy in a stall in the Atlanta airport on a conference call.
Oh my gosh, I don't want to know, but he was talking to me.
If you can't get away from it to go to the restroom, it's gone
You're
too
in
far.
trouble. That's
Yeah.
right. Thank you. Such good advice and such a great way to finish this incredible live cast. I'm Carrie Fairdeck with Convention News Television. We've teamed up with Bob.tv to bring you this, and we hope it was a success for you as well. So for all of us from the 2013 ASAE Annual Meeting and Exposition, we'll see you next time. Thanks for being with us.